Well, this is a rare podcast episode where GP wants to talk Navy hoops before Baylor and Arkansas. Let's do that now. We'll do whip around. Let's talk about this one kind of in standalone fashion, then I'll kind of tear through everything else before we get to the golden story. Baylor gets the win. It was a game that was, I don't know. It was good to see Baylor respond the way they did it after getting obviously just wiped by Gonzaga in its first game of the season. And credit to Scott Drew for being willing to schedule Gonzaga and then Arkansas. You take the split without a doubt, 72-67. Baylor beats Arkansas. Arkansas only shot 25% from beyond the arc. Scott Drew was using some sort of like melded zone look that was constantly shape shifting. He went to man for a little bit, but that definitely was a major factor. In fact, I think John Calipari said after the game, or at least halfway admitted as much, like, you know, the zone thing kind of threw him off a little bit there. And as a result, on the other side of the floor, Baylor was able to get 38 points in the paint, which I thought was a very good development for a Baylor team that's going to be very guard heavy. To get 38 points, and like Big Z for Arkansas, like he is not there yet. Baylor was able to shoot almost 60% from inside the three-point arc as well. It was good stuff. They never trailed in the game, GP. Norshad O'Meara had 15 points and 12 boards. Jaden Nunn, who I thought would need to be a key factor, he was. He had 16 in this game. VJ Edgecombe, 11 points, 8 boards, 5 assists. And even Robert Wright, who he is freshman, but there's something that, like, he's a very good spark plug for this team if he can be that kind of player. Really, really good. Adu Thero. So they even addressed this on the podcast. They don't want to say Thero, it's Thero. So Adu Thero.
Well, when his father was in college, it was Almami Chero.
Okay, well, they had a whole, they even referenced it. It was Jimmy Dykes, and apologies for not remembering the play-by-play guy here, but they had a whole thing where he wants to be Adu Thero, so not Thero anymore. 24 points, the best game of his college career. I mean, he was good. Boogie Fland was like a plus again. He had 17. I don't know what his plus minus numbers was, but individual plus minus numbers are fake stats anyway. Nelly Davis, only 8 points on 2 of 9. He has not been the impactful player that they are going to need him to be. And we both picked Baylor to win. It got it done. A really good bounce back effort for the Bears. Again, you take a split. You get Gonzaga and Arkansas, and neither of those games are on your home floor. You sign up for the 1-1 split there. With Arkansas, as I watched the game play out, it was more like, okay, I feel like this team is going to be able to pull off a few like really notable wins, and we'll be singing their praises and talking about what Calipari has been able to do there. But it feels very choose your own adventure. This team is going to be up and down and inconsistent. I thought that was evident even over the course of a 40-minute game against Baylor there. So we wait and see, but they are not, it's just not a unit that's gelled yet. And like they look like, although this is the case with most teams now, when I watched Arkansas play in this particular game, and remember, they had some issues early against Lipscomb, they very much look like a team that is just getting to know each other, and the pieces, they are not singing in harmony just yet. So give it a little bit of time there, Arkansas fans. But a good game, and obviously another notable game on the opening weekend.
Yeah, well, the reason they look like they're a bunch of guys just getting to know each other, because they are quite literally a bunch of guys just getting to know each other. Like, you know, more of these guys played together at Kentucky last season than anybody played at Arkansas last season. You mentioned Razorback shot 25% from 3. To me, that's not the most concerning number as much as it's just 20 3-point attempts in the game. It's very early. We're just recapping, you know, the first week of the season. But when I turned that on, it looked to me like I was watching a Calipari Kentucky team at Arkansas. That's what it looked like.
There are some vibes of that. There's no doubt.
Only 23-point attempts. And on the season now, only 32.2% of Arkansas's field goal attempts are coming from 3. That ranks 288th nationally. Last season at Kentucky, these numbers are interesting and I think illustrate a point. Last season at Kentucky, the Wildcats, 37.5% of their field goal attempts came from 3. That ranked 179th nationally. And he had Reed Sheppard. Still just didn't take him, right? For some context here, UConn is your back-to-back national champion. UConn, 40% of its field goal attempts last season came from 3. And the year before that, it was roughly 42%. They've been above 40% in terms of percentage of field goal attempts from three each of the past 2 seasons while winning back-to-back national championships. And you ready for this? John never had a team at Kentucky, not one, launch more than 37.5% of its field goal attempts from three. Most of his teams were in the high 20s or low 30s. He just doesn't adapt to it. When he moved to Arkansas, if I were Cal, I swear I think I would have asked. I would have called Nate Oates if we're friendly enough. And I would have said, who would you hire? Who's the young person
Nate Oates
you're
is looking to help out Cal in league. That's the problem.
You know what? Then I would have asked people who know Nate Oates better than I do. And I said, who do you think Nate Oates would hire? Who do you think he would look at? Who do you think's the next Alabama assistant? Because I want to make him the next Arkansas assistant. I would have overpaid for that person. There's a famous clip. There's a bunch of famous clips, but a famous clip of Kanye West, and he's just popping off the way he does. And at some point he says that he refuses to listen to anybody older than him. He says only young people. He yells this. He says only young people have good ideas. So I only listen to young people. I will not listen to anybody older than me because there's no way anybody older than me has a better idea than me. Now, regardless of whether that's entirely true, yeah, I agree. Obviously you can't paint with that broad of a brush.
Yeah, you think?
Regardless of whether that's entirely true, it's an interesting perspective. And I think John Calipari, to circle this back to basketball, could really benefit from just listening to somebody younger and with fresh ideas, particularly on the offensive end. And I don't mean just add somebody to the staff who fits that description. It doesn't do any good to have somebody on a staff that fits any description if you don't trust them and you don't listen to them. So what I mean is hire the brightest young offensive mind in modern basketball and let him or her coach your offense while you just motivate, coach toughness, and fundraise. Like having awesome recruits play basketball like it's 1996 just ain't it anymore. Kentucky fans grew tired of it, and Arkansas fans will too, unless you could win enough to offset that frustration. And oh, by the way, at Kentucky, under Mark Pope, they shot 24 threes in game 1 and 36 threes in game 2. The Wildcats' percentage of field goal attempts from three-pointer range through 2 games under Mark Pope is sitting at 41.7%, and that is identical to UConn's 2023 national championship team.
You're busting this take out of the box too early, man, because you know that you're going to be able to go back to this thing multiple times this season. So I agree with you.
Sounds like a Champions Classic column on.
Well, that's
oh no,
well,
they're not even in.
They're not in the Champions. Yeah, they're not in the Champions Classic.
I've done that a few times already. Like I go to look up. Like I've done that a few times. Like what I was about to say there is sounds like a column I could write after the Champions Classic if Kentucky doesn't win. And then you have to remind yourself John Calipari is not there anymore, so we'll have to save that. But like I was like looking up something. And I was like on Arkansas, and I went back to Arkansas, and I was like, well, that's not Cal's team. It's still, I've caught myself a couple of times. Yeah.
I hear you.